Please help me change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship, and what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare, and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers. Welcome, everyone, to the Green Nurse podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We're here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good or be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. You deserve to feel good. We all deserve to feel good. My name is Nurse Sherri Mack. I'm the Chief Nursing Officer and co-founder of Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse, Vice President of Nursing at Bloom Hemp CBD, and I am a cannabis nurse, patient advocate, activist, and a very passionate podcaster here to change the paradigm of healthcare, educating on the safe therapeutic use of plant medicines. I started podcasting in 2018 when the National Council State Boards of Nursing came out with their guidelines that all nurses must have 6 essential areas of knowledge when it comes to cannabis as medicine. I started podcasting to decrease stigma and to share compelling stories of healing, since I too use cannabis and other plant medicines as a medicine. Cannabis nursing has been recognized as a specialty, and nurses are truly making an impact on advocating for the safe therapeutic use of cannabis by teaching on the endocannabinoid system and how to optimize cannabis as a medicine for health, healing, and wellness purposes. As plant medicine nurses, our role extends beyond recommending cannabis and hemp products or any product at all. We strive to provide alternative solutions from multiple modalities that support the endocannabinoid system, promoting health, healing, and overall wellness. And that includes psychedelic medicines as well. So today's guest is someone who lives at the fascinating intersection of emergency medicine, neurochemistry, consciousness, and psychedelic healing. Christi Myers has a master's in science. She is an EMT-P, is an educator, former tenured associate professor, paramedic, and the founder of Becoming Psychedelic. She spent more than 2 decades in emergency medicine, in years teaching pharmacology, anatomy, physiology, cardiology, and applied theory before her path expanded into psychedelic-assisted care. Christi went on to build Flow Integrative, where she was involved in more than 3,500 100 ketamine experiences. She developed education, preparation, and integration frameworks and helped create one of the first employer-sponsored ketamine treatment programs in the USA. Today, Christi is exploring a very big question. What if the psychedelic experience is not something a drug gives us, but something the human being is already capable of creating? I'm really excited to explore that. Through Becoming Psychedelic, she teaches the science, neurochemistry, preparation, and integration behind expanded states of consciousness. Her work invites people to develop greater sovereignty, discernment, and trust in their own capacity to heal, while still recognizing the importance of education, safety, and community. At the heart of her work is one very provocative idea: you are the drugs. On a personal note, I'm very grateful to have Christi to be here. She has offered me tremendous guidance over the past year with my own personal journeys. I deeply respect her mind, her integrity, and the way she challenges conventional thinking. And I'm truly grateful to welcome her to the show. Christi Myers, welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast.
Oh, you are such a gem, Sherri. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. I'm just so excited for this conversation. You and I have been having off the clock conversations, this is just feels like a very appropriate time to have you on the show to
Yeah.
share all the amazing work that you're doing in the community today, for the viewers. This is how I kind of like to start off my podcast because, we all don't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to be educating on the safe therapeutic use of psychedelics and help others with their journeys or to safely explore their consciousness for healing. There's usually a very compelling story that goes with it. And I know our viewers can't wait to hear yours.
Yeah, thank you. And it has so many different iterations and evolution over the years of telling that story, right? Which is a true testament to the evolution of my consciousness as it pertains to. You listen to some of the podcasts I did 5 years ago, and even the tone of my voice has changed. And so that's always evolving.
Yes, because we're constantly evolving. We're
100%.
different people every single day. Again, we're only going to have this experience once every minute of every day, right?
Yeah.
The time is now, So again, you spent decades in emergency medicine working with the chemistry of survival. Okay.
Yeah.
So boy, I remember working in the ICU, what that looked like.
Oh, yeah.
How did your understanding of catecholamines, and now catecholamines is a big word, and I'm going to have you define that,
Thank you.
eventually influence the way you think about consciousness?
For
You know,
sure.
yeah, so go ahead.
Well, unknowingly, I became the person who I needed when I was younger. So when I was 15 years old, I lost my father to suicide. And that was a major trajectory into this work unknowingly, right? That's where I started having my path was coursed by a lot of men and women in the fire service, predominantly the fire men in the fire service as examples of camaraderie and connection. And that started this path or trajectory. And so those 20 years were over multiple disciplines. I spent time in wildland fire until I realized that there was municipal fire. Then what did that look like to progress your knowledge in medicine and go from an EMT to a paramedic? And what does that timeline look like? And so all of it has been these stepping stones of just following this path and trajectory as essentially it was calling me to here now. And to your point, I had a conversation earlier. It's like if you would have asked Christi 10 years ago, there's no way I would have said, I work with psychedelics and I teach consciousness and the transformation in thereof, right? And so
Yeah.
as I started my professional journey in academia, I was given opportunity to start lecturing pharmacology. And my drug of choice was achievership and being number one, right? And so
So you were
I
competitive.
I had to make sure that I knew what I was talking about as I'm delivering information. Now, back when I was becoming a paramedic, that word catecholamine was something that we just data dumped to pass a quiz during the beginning of A&P, right? It was like catecholamines, does it include epinephrine? Yes. And then we dumped it out of our mind, and I never thought about it again, honestly, until I started teaching that information. And it was during that time frame that there was some major transformations for me personally, right? So with this knowledge came deep suffering. There was a catalyst of events that occurred for me, which resulted in a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And at that point, it opened up my capacity in my consciousness to start receiving and delivering information in a whole new capacity that I had never experienced before. And it continuously evolves through the way I'm able to language and how I retain it and access it. And so catecholamines became just so important to me. But like you said, that name is sometimes
Foreign.
whelming.
Yes. So, okay. So just for the new viewers,
Yeah.
what's a Kundalini awakening?
Well, I had no idea what it was. Deep suffering, right? Self-imposed. And just to give you some context, I was standing on the grass, barefoot in my backyard, getting this slip and slide wet for my, at that time, 2 and 4-year-old. And a cascading of events was occurring. So I was in the middle of a really terrible divorce and court trial. My mom just got diagnosed with cancer, and my grandma was just put on hospice and had a debilitating stroke. And so it was those three events. At the same time, I was learning how to become a single parent. My entire reality, as I knew it, was being flipped upside down. And it was all of these sequencing of events. And in a spontaneous moment, every single cell in my body was blown wide open. All fear was leaving my body actively. Every cell was activated and vibrating. My head felt like it was exploding with light and information as I was standing in the grass holding a hose while my kids were on a slip and slide. And it
Okay.
became this,
So
there was
you
no,
had you so basically just correct me if I'm wrong. So that experience having a spontaneous Kundalini awakening is almost having a natural psychedelic experience
100%.
in your own body. So your own body was flooded with different catecholamines,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
For
yeah.
you to release these emotions
Oh, yeah.
because you couldn't hang on to them anymore.
Oh, no. And it was a recipe, right? I mean, that's apparently, from
Yeah.
what I can tell now, a decade later, this happened in 2016. Uh, this is why I'm on Earth, right? Is to be able to give this language. And what a long, strange trip it's been, to
I
say
can
the least.
identify.
At that time, there was no intelligence around it, right? I mean, I remember taking my kids to Barnes and Noble and just grabbing every book off the shelf while they played on a train table of trying to figure out what the hell happened to me. And really, there was nothing to pull from. Some of the most latest research on these spontaneous events, there is some language to it now, more so, but then it also can result in a lot of different psychoses if you like. It depends on who you language it to.
Well, it
You're
is.
like,
If you're
you just sound
languaging it,
crazy.
if you're languaging it to a holistic practitioner, they're going to see it one way. If you're going to language it with a shamanic practitioner, they're going to language it a different way. If you're going to language, and so languaging means discussing,
Yeah.
integrating, sharing your experience. So every person has a snow globe on their head, and they're going to take your experience and process it through their own perception and
Yeah,
what they know and don't know, right?
literally.
Wow.
And at
So
that
I
time,
can see why you wanted to do your own research with this
oh yeah,
because it's deeply personal and private and intimate.
yeah. And learning how to language that. The one of the greatest teachers that I found at that time was Dr. David Hawkins, and his work on the map of consciousness, the levels of consciousness. I have spent close. I mean, I remember driving to Colorado with the kids just to listen to Power versus Force because it's a 15-hour book. So it was perfect. I'm like, good, we're going to Colorado. Let's just, I listened to that way. They listened to Frozen like 30 times.
Yeah, can identify with that.
Ah,
Wow, this is so fascinating. I'm even learning more about you,
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So again, so when someone who has spent years operating in a catecholamine driven state, so
Yeah.
again, these catecholamines, these are our own, epinephrine, norepinephrine, different
Dopamine.
neurotransmitters that are firing off, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're firing off. So again, so when we for people that are new that are watching, and I'm just going to bring it back to the endocannabinoid system because it's easy. The endocannabinoid system signals the fight or flight response. It also signals the relaxation response. We
Yep.
cannot control the fight or flight response. It happens automatically. And this is what you're talking about, right? The catecholamine driven
Yes.
state.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're mind and body. So they hold dual roles in the system in totality, right? I'm going to turn my Wi-Fi off so I don't freeze. Could you hear me okay there? I
Yeah.
saw
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
good. I'm just going to turn this off so I don't pull extra power. Eh. Now, again, Sherri, my 10-year track was starting at the same time that my awakening was occurring. So now I'm stepping into academia in a much more full-time capacity and primarily reinventing the way that we deliver A&P, anatomy and physiology, and pharmacology applied theory. So it's the entirety of the human body as it pertains to emergency medicine. Well, during that time frame, I was also receiving downloads of information, streams of consciousness as it pertains to. So I'd be lecturing on information and I'm like, how do I even know this? Like I would just stream through me and I was experiencing captivation. But mind you, I was also heavily enmeshed in delivering this information. So my face was in the books day in and day out so that I could come in and walk into these lectures so prepared for subjects that I had not taught otherwise, right? And so I was in school, if not more so than the paramedics themselves, because there was no way I was walking in and trying to wing it to a bunch of medical professionals. That's just not what I do. And so catecholamines were fundamental, right? What it means is they hold two roles, they're mind and body. They're neurotransmitters and they are actually hormones.
Right. There you go.
And so this is where from thought alone, if you and I were to sit here and conjure, or even me specifically, right, and I'm in a worried state, this is where anxiety lives. This is where rumination and ideation. So conjuring, worst case scenarios, the what ifs, the hypotheticals. If we're doing that in our mind, then those catecholamines are signaling to the body that it's true.
There you go.
And so, therefore, we're flooding. That's the whole premise. And you hear more and more people in this space that are starting to get this conceptually is that we're talking about you're standing on the brake while also pushing on the gas. And so, you're literally flooding this system. Well, even more importantly, you're creating neural pathways. And so now, and this goes back all the way from how much time we've been on Earth, right? And if you follow some of my content, I talk about how some of us have been overdosing since infancy. And
Yeah.
as to the point you made, where we can't control this hypervigilance state. Well, if our body doesn't feel safe, this is where the debate of free will comes in. So if my body doesn't feel safe, for a nanosecond, my body is going to run through this limbic brain. And before I can have any type of conscious thought, I've already run the information through an acquisition center of the hippocampus and the amygdala. There's two places we store all of our trauma and memory and story. And so now the body is creating a false narrative because it doesn't feel safe because of an imprint through childhood or whatever happened to us developmentally and into adulthood. And then we run it through the brain and the mind, and then we conjure here in the prefrontal cortex. And then we do the same thing. We just continuously cycle these false narratives to where now we can show we have 70,000 thoughts a day, and 60,000 of those are from the past. So we're literally just bringing the past into our current reality and never really stepping into our future.
So basically, our imagination is powerful,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, in
Yeah.
other words, you just said we conjured, we created, we manifested in our mind a story that is now playing out in our body because our body is listening
Oh,
to
yeah.
the stories that we're telling ourselves, no
Oh,
matter
yeah.
what they are. And we may
Right.
not even be consciously aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves because our consciousness hasn't allowed us to be able to witness that.
For sure. And it's the imprinting. I mean, this is from 0 to 8, 8 to 15, 15 to 25. All of those have different neurological development imprintings. So therefore, there's stuff like notoriously a lot of people who have survived childhood will talk to you about how they can't remember from anything from 0 to 8.
Yeah.
And that's one of the major reasons as to why.
Yeah. So again, okay, and this is interesting. I love again, so someone that's been in that catecholamine driven state starts to experience homeostasis. So they're out of fight or flight, getting into the relaxation response. How might that change what they recognize as normal?
Well, this is where cannabis also has major influence into this, right? So people that will tell you that they experience paranoia or anxiety while smoking cannabis, that's the magnitude of the dysregulation of the nervous system. And so until we can go into this state where we are in stasis, we don't know we're flooded. That's where ketamine becomes this phenomenal tool, right? But if we were to do it organically, we could do that through forms of meditation and or breath work. But otherwise, for most of us, we are living in such a dysregulated state that has become normalized because we're adaptive. And so we've been growing into this dysregulation through decades,
Yeah.
if not longer. And so we don't even have an understanding that we are dysregulated until the anxiety or that destabilization becomes so blatant that now we are crippled with anxiety. And then for a large majority, we're grabbing things that dysregulate us and calling it regulation through the forms of things that are legal: our phone, sugar, food, alcohol, sex.
Yeah, shopping.
Oh, shopping. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
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 Or achieving.
Yeah, or doing more like the human doing instead of the human being, right?
Oh, yeah.
I love checking off boxes, right? That's my dopamine. That's
I
woo, woo.
created this list. Yeah.
Yeah, look how many boxes I got checked off today. Woo. Okay, I have a story for you, and you can tell me if this is an appropriate example. So there
Yeah.
was a nurse practitioner that I was working with who was getting her PhD, extremely, extremely anxious. She did a lot of natural holistic modalities, wasn't into the high THC, tried some CBD, and it was really interesting. She was just dabbling just a little bit, 5 milligrams here and there. And she's like, I'm not really noticing it. I'm like, all right, well, let's just increase your dose a little bit. Well, we increased her dose a little bit of the CBD, and all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I'm high. Oh my God, I'm high. I'm like, no, you're not high. You're relaxed.
Yeah.
You have been in the fight or flight response for such a long time. You're not high. You just don't know what it means to feel good or to be relaxed because you're constantly going, 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 doing. And now that you finally have gotten into the relaxation response with a little bit of CBD, it's foreign to you.
Yeah. 100%. It's downshifting, right? So full
Putting the
throttle.
brakes on. Like that's exactly what the CBD is, putting the brakes on.
Or throwing it into neutral, right? So like it's people pegging out for those of us that remember driving a stick, right? It's literally we're pegged out at 4 or 5,000 RPM and we don't know that we need to downshift.
There you go.
And so you're just living in it. I mean, we've created energy drinks, named it. It's really fascinating how much we live throttled and not in our body unknowingly until it becomes catastrophic or so blatant that we're forced to do something about it.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so let's talk about ketamine as being a foundation psychedelic and what that means.
Yeah.
One of the questions is, you can learn to navigate ketamine, teach someone about altered states of consciousness and their own capacity to move through them. So what do you mean by ketamine as being a foundation psychedelic and how people can learn to navigate altered states of consciousness using that medicine?
Yeah, for sure. Ketamine works at the limbic gate. And so
Okay, limbic gate. Sorry, what is limbic gate?
the limbic gate is where this reptilian brain, the manufacturer of survival chemistry, comes into the cortex. It's the mechanism that connects mind and body.
Okay.
That's why we use it in the operating room so easily, right? So,
Right.
just to give ketamine some props, because it really does deserve it, ketamine replaced PCP in the operating room. So, before ketamine was a primary medication in the OR, it literally replaced PCP. And there were so many people that were reporting agitation that they're like, we got to think of something else. So, PCP got removed and ketamine came in. So that's where some of that ignorance comes in around it, PCP and ketamine being the same categorically, for
Mhm.
sure. It evolved into it, different formulary, but it is definitely not PCP. And so where ketamine works is it separates mind and body so we can do surgery. This is
Mhm.
why we give such a large dose so quickly and why we talk about emergence phenomenon in medicine as it pertains to induction
So
or
induction into
anesthesia.
anesthesia.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And so this is where a lot of practitioners in the space front load it with the benzo, Versed specifically, so that you can't remember the emergence phenomenon you're about to embark on before they put you in and separate your mind and body. Because remember, the brain has no pain receptors. And so if we just pull the brain away from the body, we can perform surgery. You can't feel it. And then you'll come back into body in a reattachment once that medication wears off.
Wow. All right.
And so the limbic gate is exactly that. And where ketamine works, and it's so beautiful as a fundamental psychedelic, in addition to a developmental tool into your own inner chemistry, is that we start off slow and low. There's should never be a large amount of ketamine exploratory unless you really want to talk about what lies beneath. And I refer to it as Ghostbusters when they open the trap, right? So you don't want to rip the bottom out of whatever you've been stuffing into your body over your lifetime. You want to just open it up.
Well, because here it is, it's opening Pandora's box, right?
Yes, Dante's Inferno is what I've also heard it referred to as. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Dante's Inferno. Yes.
Yeah.
Just literally, we watched that film recently. There was a
Really?
film on it. Yes. And I actually wrote a piece on how Dante's Inferno, watching that movie was like integrating what a psychedelic experience
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, yeah, you don't want it too quick, which is why emergence phenomenon, and I would love to unpack that with you at some
Sure.
point. However, we literally language it as a phenomenology in medicine. It's just like no other than, unknown etiology
Right.
and these other idiopathic things that we talk about. We don't know its origin story, so we just make something up. But we see emergence phenomenon, which is another word for K-hole on the street. And so if you do too much at one time, you literally create such a gap that you fall into your shadow.
Ah,
You don't want to do that. At least I wouldn't recommend doing that because all it does is give ketamine a bad name, quite
yeah.
honestly, because you didn't know how to do drugs. And
Well,
not,
that's
it's just really important that we
right.
know how to do drugs. I mean, we are the drugs. We are activating our own inner chemistry. That limbic gate is a fundamental tool to keep us safe. We've evolved out of that chemistry, but we haven't caught up to it. It is my theory that we should have evolved out of that limbic brain 60 plus years ago when we were working with psilocybin very intentionally. It's an evolutionary mechanism, right? And
Yeah.
so, as that limbic brain, as we give it the capacity to temporarily create space, we give our brain an opportunity to usher in new consciousness.
Yeah.
That's where ketamine gives
Because you
opportunity
can't usher in new consciousness when you're stuck in the muck, I like
for
to say.
sure. You're hyper focused. So now instead of seeing, you're just honed in, right? So now you don't even have the capacity. This is where we become addicted to that stress chemistry, which is why we create chaos, urgency, endless to-do list, stacking on more and more as a reason as to why we can't sit in our own dysregulation because it's so uncomfortable. I'd rather keep running from it until it catches up with me so profoundly that it puts me in the dirt, either medically or rock bottom. And then even that has some basements you can access depending on how how much more you want it. Mm,
Wow. Yeah. So again, let's get back to you are the drugs, right?
yeah.
So when you say that, that's like one of the core ideas, that central ideas behind your work. What do you mean about that? And what are you actually talking about?
Okay, so those catecholamines, and I'm going to close my eyes so I can really tap into the information. The catecholamines are epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. So epinephrine and norepinephrine are best friends. And you and I know this from medicine, right? Vasopressor. And then we also use norepinephrine in a multitude of ways, typically in the ICU, to bring integrity back to the container. So just for simple terms, if we were to look at the human body, we have a pump, we have a container, and then we have volume.
There
The
you go.
heart, the vessels, and the blood, right? And so if epinephrine is coursing through our veins in the form of adrenaline, then it only makes sense that the container is going to respond to that by constricting. This is where we're clenching. Our shoulders are up here. We're literally so constricted in our gut that we aren't removing the stool that we're supposed to remove. I mean, we could break this down so beautifully and so organically that it only makes so much sense as to why we have all these medical problems in society. And so if epi and norepi are completely oversaturated and we're essentially overdosing, we're continuously excreting. How long can we do that before those mechanisms become exhausted? And now you bring in dopamine. Dopamine is reward, right? Now, if the reward is achievership, that means it's outside of me and I have purpose and reason to keep going and getting it.
So it's the doing. So it's the doing to
It's
feel.
reward. It's reward. It's reward. It's
Right.
reward.
I'm doing this, I'm getting rewarded. I'm doing this, I'm getting rewarded. I feel
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Pat
And
on the
for us
back.
medical professionals that are listening, like I'm going to use myself as an example. The minute I decided I wanted to be a paramedic, that's a minimum of a 5-year trajectory.
Yeah.
And so now I have 5 years of dopamine to get me here, right? And as soon as you get here, this is where we see the dopamine dump. And I started seeing it really profoundly in my classroom after finals and how we were just completely destroying people unknowingly around dopamine dumps and expecting them to perform in addition to, right? So you finish the written final, now you got to go into skills final. You can't recover in that time frame. Your dopamine dump is profound. I just made it to finals. I figured out I passed. Dopamine's all over the place in our body, and now I have to go do it again. We also see that in a clinical setting. So I'll give you another example. If you were a brand new nursing student and you came into my emergency room and I'm a salty charge nurse and it's graveyard and we're in the trauma unit, better have your shit together, girl. And if you are stumbling, mumbling, or you can't formulate a sentence, I'm going to have your ass, right? And so now you may have a whole bunch of knowledge, but you can't work under pressure, which is why stress inoculation becomes so important in professional development, right? And so you see all these things developmentally, and depending on your nervous system as a child before you came in, it's a whole different category. Some people thrive in it, like the building can be on fire, and they're like, that's all you got. And other people are like, the building's on fire. And you're like, yeah. And right. So there's multiplicities. There's a whole bunch of things we can unpack with that. But to give example, right? So epi, norepi, and dopamine. Now, all three of these drugs have also been bottled and sold back to us. We make all of these drugs internally all the time through thought alone. And
Yeah.
now we've literally just mimicked the human body, also found in nature, put it together synthetically, packaged it, and it's really expensive to give it back to us, right? It's very profitable.
Yes, it
And
is.
so when we are the drugs, those are it. So how long have you been oversaturated in your dopamine reward system, in your adrenal epinephrine based? This is all energy, which is why we now are talking about how much, energy is depleted, all the different autoimmunities. I could share my own personal journey with my adrenal glands damn near falling out from me chasing adrenaline for so much of my professional career. And then if you really unpack catecholamines foundationally, dopamine then becomes different reward mechanisms that we chase externally. So now, and same with adrenaline, right? That's also in the form of scary movies. It's also in the form of spicy food. So we can actually create these things synthetically through things that we're consuming orally. And then the dopamine mechanism, and what is notorious is this bad boy right here, right? We can literally show, and that's why social media feeds and being so quickly is giving us dopamine hits to where we literally we're becoming so compromised in our dopamine that we have to go into different forms of detoxing just to be able to come back down into a normal way of being.
Yeah.
Now, bringing ketamine gives us an opportunity to take us out of these prefabricated states that we have literally memorized and fired and wired. And so we've been running these circuits. They're trained, they are perfect. And if we temporarily suspend that and expand consciousness, then we can actually see when we go back into these old networks.
And old networks, which also create the old behaviors.
Yes.
So, in other words, so doing the ketamine opens up your consciousness to receive new information so you can do something differently
Yes.
to start managing and getting back into systemic homeostasis. So you're not like,
Throttled all the time.
yeah,
Your adrenal glands are just they're just full throttle, right?
yeah.
They're like little kidney hats. Like if you see how cute your adrenal glands are, you wouldn't want to abuse them as much as we do.
Yeah, yeah. So when we're specifically talking about the medicine ketamine, what is the molecule actually doing that creates an access point for a different experience of consciousness? I know that you probably already answered this, but I just want to make sure that people get this.
For sure. And that's where I have a different philosophic approach, right? Meaning we could look at the GABA receptors. We could look at these things fundamentally, which we're doing on rats in a laboratory, which also blows my mind how that has pertainability, right? Versus recognizing that it separates that limbic gate and the body and mind. So by separating body and mind at this mechanism where we're creating this adherence, the reptilian brain, right? The limbic brain is what we have in common with all species and developmentally through that reptilian side, right? So if we take that specifically and separate mind and body temporarily, this is where the body rejoices in the fact that we finally got out of its way.
Yeah.
And so now the mind isn't flooding the body, and there's multiplicities in the beauty that this starts to happen with, right? You can literally watch rhythmically things start to happen to the individual as they're working with ketamine developmentally. You can see as heart rate starts to stabilize and we come down from this accelerated rate, breath and chest start to expand so rhythmically because we're coming out of that survival tachypnea or this fast breathing. And then you can literally watch when the medicine is done and the consciousness comes back into the vessel and we go back into this accelerated state that we've also memorized so deeply. But the phenomenology that happens is that it creates an opportunity for us to recognize that.
So the space after doing a ketamine opens up a period of neuroplasticity for you
Yes.
to be able to make significant changes in your life.
And
Doing
connections. Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, so but also it requires you to do the work. So in other words, instead of picking up the phone first thing in the morning and starting to scroll, do a meditation. Like in
For
other
sure.
words, so it's change, so it helps you to get out of bad habits and create new habits that are going to serve you and your consciousness in the place that you want to be. So becoming the better version of yourself,
For
right? Because
sure.
people don't do psychedelics. I mean, some people do them just to have fun. Some people do them, but the most people that are coming to do this medicine really want to explore their consciousness and change to become better versions of themselves. Because
Yeah.
guess what? You only got one meat suit, right?
I
This
know.
is it. This is you.
And
This is it. This is
yes,
it. Like wherever you go, there you are. For
100%.
one, right? So
And
becoming friends with yourself.
yes. Well, even witnessing yourself. So a lot of times we are so meshed. That's the whole phrase of like you can't see the forest when you're smashed against the tree, right? So if I'm in my nervous system and I create space, I'll never forget, Sherry, the first time I felt a trigger, I was like, holy shit, give me a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm being triggered. And before I act out of this trigger, I had all these realizations because ketamine's a mirror molecule. So to just reinforce that question you originally asked, ketamine's a mirror molecule. This is where we could talk about even the theories of phantom limb pain and what starts to happen when the brain can see itself. Right? And so now, if you can see yourself from a higher state of consciousness, because remember, we're creating access points. So when we create new neuroplasticity, we have all these new access points of connection as it pertains to seeing our old self. This
Right.
is the shadow. And in that shadow, the variable is the individual. And so what you decide to do with that information is literally contingent on you, the individual. And so if the medicine first shows you something as simple that you maybe clench your jaw all day long, that may become the first thing you work on. You're like, what are you doing? You're like, well, shit, I'm undoing all this TMJ. I thought I had to go get needles in my face, but turns out I was just clenching. And so now it's as simple as like, oh, I stopped clenching, all resolved, right? And so we give the benefit to the medicine, but in reality, you just created a new access point in your consciousness to be able to observe yourself and do something as fundamental as stop clenching,
Yeah.
which I
Well,
refer to as
it's
bracing for impact.
yeah. So, and then there's those that are clenching and grinding at nighttime while they sleep. Well, that's what they're working out, right? Sleep is another psychedelic state, right?
100%. It's an altered state, which, I mean, if you look at our profession fundamentally, how many different iterations of altered states of consciousness do we lecture on, but we've created compartments for?
Yeah.
Meaning, if you look at an ALOC protocol for paramedics, right? The things that we have as variability, like, is it opioid related? Is it an overdose? What are the overdoses? Is it diabetic related? Is it DKA? Is it hypoglycemia? Is it an acidosis? You could pull in all the H's and T's, right? So we
And
have like,
all of that is our own internal chemistry changing.
because we can't maintain homeostasis.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
all homeostasis related. We are constantly trying, or we're very effective, but we're constantly putting ourselves into a state where we have harmony through our pH, through our temperature, through our blood sugar. It's all feedback loops. We are just one giant feedback loop that we have separated into all different categories. There's 14 in totality, and then we created those as specialty and silo. Like I only work with obstetrics. I don't work with gynecology, even though gynecology is part of the obstetric. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
created all these silos and specificity to where now I only know this information, like cardiology. Cardiology won't even recognize for a large majority diet as it pertains to the heart.
Oh, I know that. Don't I know? So the five domains of health, don't get me started on that. Like the compartmentalization of how medicine is working today really needs to change. I mean,
Oh
honestly.
my gosh, I know. I mean, sure, yes, their specialty is great, but let's have some acknowledgement of the body. And this is where my work really
Yeah.
oh, I became so passionate is because we're not acknowledging the mind and body. Ketamine is one of the greatest access points for us to evolve our consciousness, period, the end, because it temporarily suspends this system where we connect mind and body.
Yeah.
Right now, fundamentally, there's doctors in this space that are treating PTSD like it's a physical injury because they don't want to talk about the mind because they want to ferret the mind out to psychiatry. And then psychiatry doesn't want to acknowledge any other, you know what I mean? Like there's a whole thing that we can unpack around that. It's just like, guys, the mind's connected to the body. Newsflash.
It's all, I know, well, that's it. It's all connected. The bio,
100%.
psycho,
What are we
social,
doing?
spiritual, right? Like you can, you can even just give a simple example of sleep. You don't have a good night's sleep. That good night, not having a good night's sleep, disrupting your circadian rhythm can disrupt your rhythm in how you eat the next day, how you manage your stress, how you can manage pain, like et cetera, et cetera. Like it's this, everything's connected.
For sure.
And yeah, mind, body, spirit. Exactly.
And
So
that's where I
again,
would, well, yes. I mean, I would love what comes up for me with the sleep side of it is the delta. So
yeah,
there's a piece in there that I wanted to, or we could elaborate on.
sure.
And I would love, I don't know if I can actually share screen, but part of a defense mechanism or a compensatory mechanism is under stress. We literally, our brain kicks offline and goes into a delta brainwave state, which is why we have so much insomnia right now as a species. If our brain is asleep all day long because we're in whelm, by the time we actually get a
When you say in whelm, you mean overwhelm.
yes,
So if our brains are in overwhelm in our waking state, our brains are pretty much like we've put our brains to sleep. So then when you actually try to sleep at night, Your brain's trying to wash it
Ta-da!
out. It's like,
100%.
hello,
Yeah, it's all
hello.
the shit you ignored all day long. Gotcha.
Everything that you ignored, I'm gonna let you know about right now while you're trying to sleep at 1 in the
100%.
morning.
Yes. So some of the work that I did was literally scanning people's brains before and after ketamine, which is where I saw even more importance in this space because ketamine will temporarily disrupt that delta brainwave state. Delta, you could think of it as the shadow. You could think of it as the unconsciousness, as the coping mechanism for disassociation, so you don't have to deal with all the shit that you're sweeping under the proverbial rug. And then when you sit with ketamine, it helps you unpack that because you are now bringing on more conscious awareness to look at the shadow, and now it becomes tangible. Now I'm going to take a little chunk of the unconsciousness, look at it, release it, whatever you got to do with it, evolve out of it. And then that's the magnitude of the amount of work you have to do as the individual, and then how we can leverage psychedelics to pull more of that shadow out of this unconscious state, bring it into a place where we can work with it. That's what we mean about doing the work. So, like, how deep are you in Delta?
So for people that are new, let's talk about what shadow means.
Yeah.
Okay, because a lot of them is like, well, why do I want to explore my shadow? Well, guess what? Because it's there.
It's there.
There. I'm telling you, because if you don't explore it, it's exploring you.
Oh, yeah, it's running your show. That's the puppeting, right?
Yeah.
The shadow is all of the unresolved identities, distractions, distortions, conjurings, and creations that we have self-imposed through the lifetime of our journey on Earth. It's all the different identities. We could unpack it all the way down to infancy and even the imprints in utero. And so from that 0 to 8 years old, what were you told, right? Were you told you had specialness? Were you told you had this? Were you told you were nothing? You have all this imprints that happened developmentally that we don't even remember after we turn 8 to 15, right? And then that's another big developmental period to where everything that got imprinted into us, we are now mirroring back to our parents, which is why that can become so friction like because they're literally showing you. And if you are unresolved in your trauma, then it just triggers you. This is where we can see so much volatility in raising children at this age frame. And then from 15 to 25, now we're actually seeking it as a normalcy. This is where you'll hear people say, I attracted my dad, I attracted my mom. And so if it goes unresolved, then we just continue to bring it into the next formation of life, which is where we create all of these identities to where notoriously between the ages of 35 and 45, we now have what is going to be a midlife crisis, or we could call it exponential because all of those identities collapse because we realize we can no longer carry all of these things that we've been creating to keep the peace.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so this is amazing. And this actually is perfect for the next question again, because it has a lot to do with sovereignty, right?
Mhm.
What does psychedelic sovereignty mean to you? And where does autonomy meet the need for education, safety, discernment, and community? And let's provide an example of what that might look like.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. One of the things that I really saw in this space was how many people were scared to tell their loved ones that they were doing this work. And so the sovereignty becomes this opportunity to be so solid in understanding that we are the chemistry and we're giving ourselves an access point to temporarily expand our consciousness, to have such deep understanding around the medicine, and that the formularies exist outside of us so that we can work with them inside of us. We're activating ourselves to evolve our consciousness.
that's
That
beautiful.
become Thank you, and that becomes such an important thing so that you can tell your children what you are doing, so that we can say, hey, this is where I'm at developmentally, these are the things that I'm struggling with, and building a community of a simpatico frequency, meaning
Oh, I love
if
that.
If I'm doing ketamine work and I'm doing shadow work, and if I come home and my family has no idea what that means, and I've already created a false narrative that I can't tell them because they won't understand, I'm creating even more self-imposition and impossibility for healing.
Because you're keeping it a secret and not sharing something that's very important to you. So having that sovereignty, meaning that I am Sherri Mack and I am doing this work and I am doing this because I want to become a better version of myself. I want to understand my consciousness because I want to live better. I want to heal better. And I want to be more loving to everyone that I'm in contact with.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
kind of like that type of
Yeah.
dialogue.
Oh, yeah. And that in and of itself creates its own frequency because you're in your truth. And so if you're attempting to evolve your consciousness while still not being in your sovereignty, you're creating a mismatch internally, which can create more struggle, honestly.
Well, you're creating a split even in your
Mhm.
psyche,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, this is what I'm doing behind closed doors, but then this is how I'm going to show the. So, in other words,
Oh, yeah.
there's lack of integrity even within yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because having that sovereignty means that you have integrity even with yourself and being able to speak these things and not be ashamed, not being
100%.
ashamed of who you are, who you were, and who you're becoming, right? Because you're
Yes.
doing it for the greater good. It's right. It's not just about taking these medicines. It's about taking these medicines and utilizing the information that it provides to you to make changes with whatever changes you need to make so you can, again, be alive and thrive, right?
Quite
Or
literally.
self-actualize, whatever that might look like.
Yeah. 100%, which is where we also see this interesting area in family dynamic. So, if we look back in different forms of medical practices, we can see philosophies around to heal the children is to heal the mother, right?
Yeah.
Because of this deep connection. And so there's this rippling effect that starts to occur in relationships. So if you do have children, the work that you do directly ripples into their existence and gives them opportunity to evolve accordingly. At the same time, if we look at it in relationship, if partners are doing the work separately, or if one person is evolving, it can create vibrational mismatch unless there is this conversation around this radical acceptance of autonomy. Of, hey, this is the trajectory that I'm on, and now I've let go of making you come with me
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Well,
wanting
sometimes,
you to
well, that's
come.
that's the thing is that you can because everyone's on their own journey. So not two people can evolve consciously at the same time, the same way, the same experiences. It's just a matter. So I get so the simpatico frequency. What you mean by that is making sure that you have something that you can relate on together. Like,
Yeah.
so in other words, things that you enjoy doing together, you continue doing together, right? It's not about all or nothing. It's about, I'm on this
Yeah.
path, I'm doing this work, but, and you need to let me do it. But at the same time, I love you and I'm here with you, and we're going to still have moments of joy of things that we enjoy doing together. But not everything needs to be.
Yeah, the same. And that, so,
Because a lot of people, like in families, there's the herd mentality that
oh,
if someone else is doing it, everyone else needs to be doing it,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like,
And so the perfect example is creating a community. So, and one of the reasons I appreciate being able to language with you so deeply, because we can have these types of conversations and I am free to speak and you can hear me. And so there's a whole different level of being connected in that type of languaging versus having to go back into a home where perhaps you're not fully seen. And so that can also become this interesting area because now I want to talk about the void. I want to talk about infinite nothingness, which is everything, or how all of it can have these different meanings. And then the person that you're conversating with, still does really mundane things like, let's just talk about weather. Or, you know what I mean? How that can become really isolating. And so, to your point of that first question or that last question, is the community.
Yeah,
So, also outsourcing a different community so that you have the opportunity to have these conversations outside of what's occurring in the home, while having radical acceptance that you're on these trajectories and you are at these proverbial forks in the road. But that doesn't mean that you can't still be in the same energy,
right,
just on different
right.
dimensional planes as it pertains to your consciousness.
Right. Yep. And so the community, so again, a plant medicine support group, joining different communities, doing integration work. So again, this is how integration, psychedelics without integration is just potential. It's about how you can take these experiences, the information that you've learned, make changes, and then to be able to talk about it.
Yep.
It's different. It's really, really different. Um, Fascinating. So again, your program, Becoming Psychedelic, teaches people to prepare for and integrate these experiences in their actual lives. Why is it important to you that people develop these capacities themselves rather than continually outsourcing them? So again, we've kind of almost answered that again, and then providing an example of what that might look like.
For sure. Well, we're all unpacking different levels. And when we talk about you are the drugs, we all have different levels of our saturation or where we've been overdosing. And so we're all in different developmental areas. Now, Becoming Psychedelic was born from having witnessed so many hundreds of different types of clinical presentations. And so it's really foundational work of teaching us the history of drugs as it pertains to the drugs that exist within us, and then how to unpack that through the different brainwave states and everything in between, so that you actually have a course to come back to answer all of these questions, rather than what that looks like if you're just having a 1 hour a week of talk therapy. Because what I was witnessing now, remember in my practice, we had a dual model, right? It was mental health and medical. And people that were going out for integration, they spent a good 30 minutes of their hour of therapy just talking about how mystical the experience was. And then for a lot of times, that language didn't mesh because the therapist didn't also understand the experience. So not everybody that's a psychedelic integration specialist is actually doing psychedelics. There's this huge monetary piece in this, right? Everybody wants to hop on the psychedelic train, get certified in it to become or have an, additional credential, but they aren't doing the work themselves. And so that becomes really problematic. And or there's also different things that we can show, and not poo-pooing therapy by any means, right? Because some of us, we definitely need that foundationally to unpack some stuff in the beginning. But when we start talking about these higher states of consciousness and putting it all together and people that are on a spiritual journey, that's where this became so important to me, to create this in its entirety for people to have continuously and to revisit the information over and over, because we have new, deeper understanding every time we come back to it.
Right. So it's giving people the ability to, again, be sovereign and to continually go back and to look and to refresh and to relearn and to reconnect with information because let's just face it, we've got built-in forgetters. Right.
That
Easy to
limbic brain.
forget. Right. So having that, it's amazing. It's beautiful that you've created something like this. I think yeah. Yeah. So again, here we are. We're watching. Gosh, you and I met up in Palm Springs at the Mizell Center. We're watching decriminalization expand at the same time. The
Yeah.
psychedelic guides, coaches, certifications, retreats, and underground facilitation industries are exploding. What do you make of a movement that is giving people greater access to psychedelics while simultaneously teaching them that they need someone else to guide the experience?
For sure. So this is where ketamine becomes foundational for a large majority, meaning to go into an arena to navigate altered states of consciousness where you're being held medically and through mental health, right? So you do the screening, the diagnostic evaluation, that in and of itself starts unpacking this medical model. You're acknowledging all these things. Ketamine is super safe, and we have no injury ever reported in a medical setting,
Right.
which is phenomenal to the safety, efficacy, and over 25 years of data we have on ketamine IV. Now, what does that do? Well, ketamine reaches completion. Ketamine's not something that you're on forever, right? It teaches you how to unpack this shadow. It allows you to become more conscious. And in that, now we start learning how to diet with medicine. And so ketamine, even in the beginning, people don't tell you how to diet with it, right? And so we're not talking to people about why we should be fasted and how it's important that the consciousness can leave our physical body. It has nothing to do with nausea or protecting an airway. These aren't anesthesia doses, for goodness sakes, right? We're very low in our dosing. And so we haven't taught anybody, at least in the Americas, and the focus is how to diet with medicine. Well, once you
So
have,
how to what to eat, like what
oh
to
yeah,
be drinking, what to be eating. So when I'm looking at diet, like what to nourish our bodies with
yeah.
before, during, and after the experience.
For sure. And that's where cannabis is one of the greatest teachers, right? If you become starving after you participate with cannabis, it's because you're starving. Like it's
Mhm.
showing you your basic needs. If you get cotton mouth, it's because you're thirsty, right? Like we learn how to, in that survival chemistry, we abandon our basic needs, especially in healthcare.
Yeah,
Like we don't drink water so that we don't have to pee, and we'll hold that for 12 hours
right.
until the bladder falls out. And then it's a whole different story, right? And so, with that being said, what does this look like for the progression and the importance of making mention that ketamine's foundational, right? If you can learn how to navigate altered states of consciousness and how important it is to come into your own inner chemistry to stabilize in your body, now you have more autonomy over progression of psychedelics, which means now what does that look like in a decrim state that you can actually grow your own mushrooms, to
Right.
diet with them, to learn how they grow, to love them, to talk to them, to eat them? This isn't a race, right? That's something that also needs to be language. It's not a panacea. You don't just do 6 ketamines and you're healed, damn it. This is a progression of the evolution of our consciousness. And so now we work with ketamine foundationally in altered states of consciousness. Now we can take that medicine home. We can start working with it through the intentional use of psilocybin. Or what does that look like to now start working with? Or maybe I'm going to ayahuasca calls me and now I'm going out of country. Or perhaps I'm looking at psilocybin retreats, or I live in a decrim state. So, how about I start growing it and dieting with it? There's this beautiful progression of the curiosity of psychedelics to activate our own inner chemistry. And ketamine is foundational at that reptilian brain to pull us out of survival. And once we come out of survival, now we're not in such a damn hurry to go heal because I'm so uncomfortable in anxiety.
Yes, that I can completely identify with that 100% because there's no rush. Like what's the hurry, Murray?
I
Like
know.
literally,
I
right?
know.
Like you are here on this journey called life. You don't need to rush it.
Ah,
Like take
ah.
time and hurry up already, right?
But well, hurry up and wait is our whole profession, which is why EMS has such benefit with working with ketamine or just healthcare providers in general, anybody in a full throttle profession.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So if we're integrating all the time, what becomes possible when we can finally observe,
Mm,
participate in, and witness our lives rather than being inundated by hurry, worry, speed, and aggression? And why
right.
is it so important to have a community and people we can language with? And again, we talked about what does it mean to language our experiences and how is this helpful
Mm.
for integration work?
For sure. Well, this is where we learn how to do our own drugs so beautifully, right? I just posted a video that I could actually feel adrenaline again, Sherry. uh,
Yeah.
Organically produced. It was so beautiful. I was like, I haven't felt this in so long. When we start to understand that we are the drugs, and I'm like, okay, I was oversaturated with epinephrine. These were all of my behaviors when I was influenced by survival chemistry. I'm now coming into more stasis. I'm in my body. Now we understand that we're actually also activating DMT. DMT lies dormant in every single one of us. It's a system waiting to be activated, but we're so busy oversaturating it, right? And the more we start to align with life, right? So ketamine teaches us foundations. teaches us how to diet. And then we start to realize that everything that we eat, think, and drink comprises everything that makes up our cerebral spinal fluid, which lubricates the brain, which is directly connected to the pineal gland that has the influence of DMT that connects us to higher states of consciousness. So we become cleaner, more sovereign, more autonomous in our body to where we realize that we are the drugs and we're manufacturing them so beautifully that we need no external influence because we're already making them at the manufacturer's spec.
Right. Right. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh,
The original model. The original model. The OG of who you are.
for
Making
sure.
your own friggin' drugs. So
For sure.
who wouldn't want to tap into that?
I know. That's what I know, right? And so it becomes really fascinating because then you realize it's a tool, right? I remember working with ketamine and being like, fuck, I was already back in survival. It's so quick how we can get pulled in it, right?
Mhm.
Like I can watch it in my kids when they go into the metaverse. They'll get sucked in so deeply. I'm like, oh shit, their breathing starts changing, their behavior. And I'm like, okay, we're separating from the let's pull you out. And it takes them a while to unwind and to come back in. And I'm like, welcome back to Earth. Because they'll just they're out of body, out of body. They're going into or down into, right? It's not an ascension by any means when we're scrolling through that. It's into lower vibrational states. And that's where our behavior becomes so unfortunate, right? And so it's really phenomenal when we start to realize our chemistry. And that's where when we are in it, stabilized, we're manufacturing our own drugs, you become, you know, unf-withable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah, yeah. Don't F with me because I'm inevitable. Right?
Literally.
Yeah, like been there, done that. Can't hurt me anymore. Seen that.
Right, right,
I've
right.
sat in my own shadow long enough that I'm not afraid of nothing.
I
What
know.
do you got? Right?
And now you become curious. You're like, oh, everything's falling apart. I wonder what the universe is bringing in now. And you just learn to let go.
Yeah, true. Wow. Okay. So your program, if your program's amazing, Becoming Psychedelic works the way you envision it. So if it works the way you envision it, what kind of person comes out on the other side? Not just someone who has
Mm.
taken psychedelics, but someone who has actually become psychedelic. What does that person look like?
Oh, that's such a beautiful vision.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Well, and so this is something I've really been working on languaging, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to language this. We reduce suffering. So what does that look like for you? At the end of the day, we are more stable, we are more conscious, we are more sovereign, and we are all vibrating a simpatico frequency that has an opportunity to make such a significant ripple effect that our consciousness evolves out of all of this lower vibrational shit that we're seeing. uh, it's the oneness, right? It's collective consciousness. And for more of us that come into this ability to stabilize, to reduce suffering, to collapse these timelines, to hold our chemistry, we literally have this opportunity to become such a force of organic frequency that there's a spontaneousness that evolves us into a new higher dimensional plane.
And that's available to everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. It just requires you to do the work.
For
Right?
sure. Yes, and that's the variable. So for someone that is struggling with alcohol, that ideal version of you, perhaps it's just not drinking anymore. Like there is no, I don't want to put a finite on it, right? Because you as the individual, maybe it's just coming off of pharmaceuticals. Maybe you're no longer subject to having to work with stimulants every day just to be able to focus. Maybe it's becoming a better mother and that's it, right? I mean, you said it best when you watched that dimensionality lecture, right? For me personally, and this is where the theory of 144,000 comes in, right? I'm going to the highest level of potentiality of me on earth in this lifetime.
Well, yeah. I
Go,
mean,
right?
once you start this work, you can't, well, first of all, you can't unsee what you see. You can't undo what you do. And then it's literally, it prompts you to keep stepping forward.
Yes, your higher self's like, mm-mm, girl, false summit.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly. The spiritual world becomes very loud. Like when you slow
Yeah.
down and you're right and you're not doing the work, you're going to get signs and symbols and prompts and messages and and even body messages like things that
Oh,
you what
yeah.
you eat and what you drink and who you hang around with and how you feel when you're around certain people in certain environments. It really makes you become self-aware of A, what feels good, and B, what triggers you. And now
Yeah,
those are the two states, right? Like you think about it.
literally,
We want
literally.
to feel good, we don't want to feel bad. And so these medicines and doing the work and slowing down and paying attention allows you to see that
Oh, yeah.
and to make the choice.
Yeah,
Again, am I going to choose what's in my best and highest interest, or am I going to take the road that I usually took,
for sure.
because it's easy.
Yeah. And at some point, you literally just effortlessly become that version of yourself. And I think I shared with you personally. I mean, I stabilized in this current dimension of Christi because every time we sit with psychedelics and we don't integrate, we open up all of these potentialities. So now we can see all these things, and sometimes we get overwhelmed by all of this, and we're like, well, I don't want to do any of it because I don't know where to start, right? And so it's like, okay, I like this version of Christi. I need to stabilize right here. What does it look like? What's my ideal day, right? And so now it's the time I'm waking up. It's the way that I feed myself. It's the way that I talk. What does my morning look like? I'm like, okay, I got these 4 hours locked in.
Right.
Now, now what does this part look like? You're literally building your reality based off of what this version of you looks like, wants, and can become until you become so solid in it that now you're ready to do it again.
Right. And so this is about, and so this is a classic example about how people need to not chase psychedelic experiences,
100%.
right? This is about having the experience, sitting with it, doing the integration work. What is it showing you? What is it continually showing you? And what are the different steps that you can take to support your mind, body, and spirit through these changes?
Oh, yeah, because the medicine will stop working when you do.
Yeah.
And so that's why people are continuously increasing dosing, right? Like I just sat with 5 grams. Now I got to do 8. You're like, absolutely not. No, 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 right?
Right.
We didn't integrate what the medicine last showed us, which means there it needs to be a little bit more integration before it's time to sit again because there's some blind spots. What is it you're still not seeing? Let's do, this is where there's a bunch of ways that we can unpack that. But to your point, it's important that we are developmental. Otherwise, the universe will just slam you with that same lesson again.
Right. Yep. Can totally identify with this. All right. Let's get into your business. Your
Thank you.
business is called CBAM Inc., and you are the founder of Becoming Psychedelic. So,
Yeah.
again, tell me about CBAM and who you built this business for.
Well, I built it for my kids and I. And so when I was first building Flow, I built 3 businesses, actually 4, right? That was part of the message. Remember, I loved achievership. And so I built a medical practice and an organization. Well, I ran those from me as the individual, but it was also my kids and I, right? I'm a sole parent and 2 teenagers. And so CBAM is literally Christi, my son's name, my daughter's name, and then my last name, Myers. And that's me as the individual as it pertains to everything that is being birthed. Becoming Psychedelic is the furthest iteration of my work up and until this date, with heavy emphasis on the importance of ketamine for legal, medically supervised, altered state of consciousness for you to unpack your shadow and evolve accordingly. And as you just made mention, to be able to do the integration when you can. This course is accessible at midnight. It's not contingent off of allowing yourself to schedule time or what is covered by insurance. It's an investment into yourself for lifetime access of information to the greatest of my ability from having served over 3,500 sessions and all the different conversations I was having with people developmentally to teach them that they are the drugs. And so I put it together sequentially so that anyone can benefit from the information. And to your point, it's not too confusing with big ass words like catecholamines.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, what I love is that you built Becoming Psychedelic as 33 lectures across 9 different chapters. And so, what you're actually teaching people is something very different that they're not getting from the psychedelic experience alone,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And so, how is Becoming Psychedelic different from hiring an integration coach or working with a psychedelic guide or attending a retreat?
For sure. Well, a psychedelic guide is going to help you at whatever you're going through right then and there. A lot of times it's the superficial, if you will. Same thing with therapy. A lot of times we can't get to the meat and potatoes because we are so inundated with the superficial. It's a debriding process, right? So wherever that spiritual coach or guide comes in, they're helping you unpack. And so that can be a long time that you work with a therapist or a coach because depending on how much you have to unpack. And then a retreat is typically one and done. You're paying a large amount of money to go have a one-time experience, and perhaps you get integration, or if you'd have the opportunity to stay in contact with the people that you journeyed with, right? Something that was important to me, Sherri, is that you had access to me. Now, what does that mean? Because even the person who helped me or that I sought out to help build this course, right? Like, how do you put all these things together, right? I have no access to that person. It was just recordings. And I'm like, well, okay. And so the more I meditated on this, becoming psychedelic is not only lifetime access, but it comes with a school community. And that's where I lecture. Yeah, I lecture live weekly.
Yep. And so for the new viewers, you can see in the notes and the show notes down below, Christi's website, Becoming Psychedelic, school, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So you'll have access to Christi and all of her work.
Yeah.
Floor. Yeah.
Yeah. And in school, there's Q&A, right? So I go live once a month, sometimes more with Q&A. You're able to send me messages for me to then build out more content. And so inside of school it's not just becoming psychedelic in that lecture series, but you're also getting You Are the Drugs, unfolding as an awareness, and different things that I continuously contribute for content into that platform that has community built in.
Wow, amazing. So for the new viewers or someone that's listening who's already experienced ketamine, who's already experienced other psychedelics or is considering it, they're new, or eventually wants to explore longer states of consciousness that they've just kind of been microdosing, how do they know if becoming psychedelic is right for them? What's the next step?
For sure. Well, if this resonates with you to have those concepts brought into your awareness, it is going to benefit you in totality. So, when I built this, I really wanted 3 different types of approaches for those who are curious about the space, those who are working with it, and those who are in integration. So, it can impact you developmentally no matter what. I mean, this could even benefit someone who is just turning 18 so they understand that inner chemistry, right? It is literally built for the intelligence for everyone of the inner chemistry, but it has emphasis on accessing ketamine legally.
There you go. Phenomenal, phenomenal work,
Thank you.
phenomenal interview. I've been so blessed to have
Mm.
been able to work with you over this past year. Yes, and just very, very excited to see where this leads. I'm sure we're going to have multiple conversations and continue to unpack some of these themes because it's given me a lot of amazing, fresh ideas for other content that I would love to have you come back on and share with our viewers. I think it would be very powerful.
Thank you. I would love that because languaging with you is very easy.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, thank you
Yes.
very much. Yes. So for anyone that's new or wondering, please explore below the links. Again, I have Christi's link to her website, Becoming Psychedelic, her school website, her LinkedIn profile, her Facebook, her Instagram, and her YouTube. So you'll be able to explore. Christi, she does have a form that you can fill out for a free informational call one-on-one. I see that you offer that and you
Yeah.
do Wednesdays, some Wednesdays you do have open
A live masterclass. Yeah.
live masterclass. So all of that information is in the show notes. Christi, thank you so much for joining me. I cannot wait to have you on again.
Same.
And for our new viewers that are out there, I always like to end my show with something very easy and very profound. You have to remember really what it's all about. It's all about living your best life and helping others do the same. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time. We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And you know, the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses Group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.